First of all, I wanted to really thank every one of you for your continuous support. Um, you know, with the mindset of continuous learning. Okay, so first of all, that's very critical because our mission is to help you all to create a mindset of continuous learning. And continuous learning does not mean learn new things. It also repeat learning the existing things so you become master of what you learn. So first of all, I wanted to really thank every one of you throughout, and especially this last batch here who have sustained through all these Saturday programs till the whole year. Thanks a lot for that. And the second thing I want to say is, we are working very hard internally to create programs for the next year. And we would have solid Codathon programs, which would focus on cloud computing and other areas. And masterclass, we are introducing something called as a masterclass, right? For AI with TensorFlow and so on. And keep looking at Eventbrite. Most probably by end of this month, we will publish all the programs that we're going to do next year. Please register them and continue to support us for the next year. And the last but not least is we will also try to kind of create some kind of a crowdfunding. We will send it all, send it to you all. If you could really help with that to further promote down to all your people and different people to really help us to secure some money to execute next year programs, we would be very thankful for you. And those who donate in the crowdfunding for that, for them, most probably all next year programs will be free. We're going to have some kind of a category like 80% of the program is free, 20% is we'll put a little premium, not like others like $100, $1,000. We'll put probably $5, $10, just to make sure that we have the consistent attendee and things like that. So what I kindly request is your help to really, get our, we have energy to really help you guys, but also we need fuel, right? We have a car, but we need fuel, electricity or petrol to really run the car, right? So we really need your help to get us there to make this as a continuous successful, next year and many years to come. With that, Harsha, I'll hand over it to you. All the very best for your last session and good luck to you all.
Thank you. Okay. I'll share my screen. Let me know once you're able to see it. Okay. So are you able to see my Jupyter notebook?
Yes,
yeah, we can.
Right. So last week we saw NumPy arrays. We had started with exploratory data analysis. So this week we'll look at introduction to pandas and matplotlib. With this, we'll look at data analysis and a bit of visualization of the data. And I had explained where this process comes in the whole machine learning model building, because it's one of the important steps with which you will be able to analyze the data, check your hypothesis, and if any transformation is required, you need to do that before you pass it on to model for it to predict. So this is like any other step. This is also an important step. So we are introducing some of the Python libraries which would help you do this. So pandas is definitely one of the most widely used libraries for data analysis. It is built on the NumPy array, which we saw last week. There's something added to that, like you have a series type, which would be like similar to NumPy array, but it's something which where you can have different types of objects added. You don't have to have it of a single data type. So you have series and you have data frames, which will be used for doing majority of the data analysis. So we'll start with series, just briefly look at series and then go to data frames. So if you look at this, I'm just taking a simple example for introducing. Of course, you will have a lot of information. You'll have like thousands or maybe millions of lines of data with which you come in and you feed it in and then build the data frame, do the analysis. But here we are starting with a few of the smaller number of examples so that you understand the concept. Okay, so there are a few things. I've just created a labels list. I'll tell you why we are using this. And then this is the list, normal list from Python, and you have a NumPy array. you have a dictionary. So you can create series from any of this. So what you need to do is after you import pandas, sorry, before I get to this, I assume that pandas is installed, a similar method which we'll have to use either conda or pip install, and install. Once you have installed, import the library, and you can create the series either from the list in Python. When you're creating the list, you can also label them. That's the main difference between series and NumPy array. Here you can label the values. So if you give the index as labels, what it will do is it will take these values and then use that to point to a particular value. So this will help you identify the values which you'll have to use. You can also create it from a NumPy array as we had seen. You can also create it from dictionary. Here, if you see from the dictionary where you have a more like a key value pair in a Python, right? So you have the key and the value. So the same thing is taken as index here. And as I mentioned, for series, the differences between series and NumPy array is that you can have different. It's not restricted to specific objects, specific data types. You can have objects like you can also create a series with functions. It's just to show an example. I haven't used this so far. So that's a brief introduction about series in pandas. The main part is data frame with which we will be doing the data manipulation. So we'll quickly move to data frame. What I'll do is for creating the data frame, I'll just import the random number generation and also the seed so that you get repeated results. OK, this is how I'm creating the data frame. If you look at this, df is equal to pandas.data frame. This is the number generation. I'm just creating random list of 20 numbers arranged in 5 rows and 4 columns. And I'm giving the index, that is the row index and the column index. With this, I will be getting the data frame. If you look at this, you will have the columns named and the rows indexed. What you can do is after this, like an array, like you use an array index to get to a particular value, right? So you can do that. df of w will give you the column under w. You can also, yeah.
The index and the columns, these are keywords when you're creating the data frame.
Here they are, yes.
Yes. OK, thanks.
Yeah. OK, and you can also combine. You send a list of columns which you need. You get that. You can add a new index. Sorry, you can add a new column by doing this. You can just add this and mention it as w plus y, and it will add both these values and it will create this. If you now print df, you will have the new column added. You can remove columns, df.drop. And this access is to mention that it is along the column. And if you make this 0, then it will be row removal. So you can see this similar thing. You mention the index for the row and mark the axis as 0, then it will be row removal. Since we haven't done in place removal, this is just showing you the output, but the original data frame still retains the values. OK. And the next part is the most important one where we will use a lot in when we are doing the data analysis for the models, filtering of data. So if this is a random number which we had generated and we added this column. So if you want to filter values which are above 0, in this case it's above 0, it will give you values. Actually, if you before I go to this 1 minute, I'll insert a cell above and I'll just show you df greater than 0. OK, it's going to give you the true or false output. And once you use that for accessing the data frame, it will give you the values. And in this case, wherever it is false, you see that it is not a number here. So these are not valid values as per this condition. And it shows the values after filtering above 0 here. You can do this at a column level also. And what you can also do is you set this condition for a particular column and get the values in another column. That can also in the data frame. This is for a
Hey,
particular
Harsha, I'm not sure. Is it
column
only
values.
me? Harsha, not sure. It's only me. We kind of lost you for a couple of seconds. Is that the same for others?
Yes.
Just give me a minute.
Yes.
Where did you lose me?
Yeah, the DF, that one. Yeah, when you started.
Was this step clear? Okay, fine. So what I'm saying is, if you look at this, this is where I'm moving to filtering of values in data frame for you to do the analysis. So if you just write this statement, data frame values greater than 0, it's going to give you the values, a Boolean value, what is true, what is false. And once you use that for for accessing the data frame, then it will give you the values corresponding to that. So df of greater than 0, it will give you the output will be, it will list the values which are above 0, and for values less than 0, it's going to populate it with not a number. Where you can use this is in exploratory data analysis. Say, if you want to, if you have several columns of information. Last week I introduced you to retail demand prediction, right? So you have like product values, you have stored data, you have merchandise data, all these things with you. So if you want to filter the data, say for example the product sale data, if you want to filter with a particular condition, say for this product, wherever it is this product, you show me the sales data only for that. Or wherever the sale data is greater than 0, you show me the stores. If you want to do such analysis, you can use this filtering technique. So the data frame, you just apply the condition whatever you want to have. In this case, I've taken a simple example, data frame values greater than 0. Then it lists all the values which are greater than 0. You can do this at a column level. That is, wherever the data, this particular column values are greater than 0. That can be done. And for this particular column values greater than 0, give me the value of another column. Wherever W is greater than 0, you give me the value of Y. That's what you see as output here. Here, all the values are greater than 0. So you get all the four rows here listed here. Are you with me on this?
Yes.
Okay. And you can also use a combination condition too. If you want to have it a column value greater than 0 and column value, another column value greater than 1, then you can use that. It will show you the results for the leftover, whatever the conditions are met. So this technique will help you a lot in doing the exploratory data analysis. This is like data frame where this is where the data frame will be fully put into use. Any questions till now?
Yeah. When you said data frame and we said 4 rows and 5 columns, or the other way about, how do you do that split of what is the columns and what are the rows?
This is just
Of course.
I've just taken as an example. I can also make this 3 by 3 and then give corresponding index or something. Just to explain to you, I've taken this as an example. In real world, how you will get it is it's towards the end. Actually, you will import a file. You'll get the data, say for example, in a CSV file. You will just import it, and what will happen is you'll get the data frame according to the data which is there.
Okay. Can you give a real life example of what would be the columns and rows in a CSV file?
I'll see. Just give me a minute. I'll search for it and give it to you. I'll briefly unshare.
I mean, even in words, it's fine.
I'll show you the file itself.
Okay.
So when you import a data set or a data frame from a CSV file, you can also specify what you want the headers and all of that to be. So when you just do it regularly, it defaults to the same way, Excel shows the top row as headers. That's how it's going to default, but you can specify that as well within the import command.
Yeah, I get that. What I was trying to do is map this theoretical knowledge to an actual set of data or information. What would that be? And that's what I didn't get yet.
One moment.
It can be any data. It can be any data set. Uh, the same way you have all kinds of data sets in Excel, you can do the exact same thing in
Okay. So
Say for example, like employee name is a row, and like whatever the pay is a column, you can say. Like,
Yeah.
it's depend on a project,
yeah,
right?
employee
So
number is okay. So
Hasan,
let's say I have employment. Okay, this one is good. Okay.
yeah, I'll explain this. See, this is one exercise which I'm doing in there is a small guided exercise which I'm doing in Analytics Vidya, and
Okay.
this is one of the examples. This is the product data I was talking about. I mentioned about
Okay.
retail demand prediction, right? This is one of the tables which we are using. Okay, so you have like the unique product code, the description, manufacturer, category, subcategory, and product size.
Right.
So this will be the columns, okay? And it's got tons of information, more than 2 lakh lines of data. So you have those things. And how you will do this is here. See, this is given in the see, this is the data which I'm talking about. So the product data is here, okay? And so what you do is you just import it this way. Product data is equal to pd dot do this. And once you okay, I'll also show you the train data. If you have the train data will also have columns like this. And once you import it, there are three files which from where we are importing. And if you look at this, you have you start doing the analysis for this train.shape product dot. You will have these many 2,32,287 with 8 columns, 33. Those things are there.
Okay.
So this is how you will have. And when you can also use that data frame to get a general idea about what those things contain. So if you have imported it from the CSV file, you're not sure about what the headings are. When you do this, you will get the information. And as Saad mentioned, we can use the first row in the CSV file to define what the columns are going to be, or you can also define it. Does this help you understand?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, fine.
Helps me map what you're learning at the.
Yeah, the reason I'm not showing these things is because see, it's better to introduce few things here and then get to the other level. But if it helps you understand, I don't mind referring to it once in a while. Okay, we can do that, and please ask these questions so that if you want to, if we learn with a real example and it will help you understand, I'll go to the other sheet and I'll show you the examples. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, right. So we have spoken about filtering. Any other question which we need to answer in this section? I'll take that as a no. So now I'll
So I
move to
have
the
one
next.
question. Sir.
Yes.
So in this one, in line number 23, we have this DF and then this list stuff. So you are doing a two comparison, right? With the ampersand and. So
yes.
The result that is gonna be kept in. Do we have to define the variable for that, or this also will give as the output like it's giving now? I mean, there is no variable.
You can
Or I don't know what is it
define.
like.
You can assign this to a variable.
Oh, okay, got that.
Right.
So without
So,
variable also it is fine, right? The output it's giving is also, this is also totally fine.
see, I have done this to show you the result here because
Okay.
I'm explaining the working behind this. So I've done this, but usually you will use this as part of an input to some other process or what you want to do with that filtering. So
Yeah.
you might have to, depending on how you're using it, you might have to store it in a variable and do it, or directly use this. That can also happen.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
In simple terms, like if you want to do this, okay, it doesn't show anything. I'll have to print this for you to see it. Say if I'll have to do this, then it shows the value. So for me to explain the concept, I'm not doing it with a variable.
Okay.
Getting my point?
Yep. Yep. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move to the missing values, which is very important. The data which you get, not everything will be proper, right? In real world, like you have data from various sources, legacy systems where some data wouldn't have been maintained properly and people wouldn't have known what data needs to enter. So you will have a lot of issues with the values, right? So that's where the exploratory data analysis comes into play. You analyze the data, find what the gaps are and see what, and take some decisions before you pass it on to the model. You take some decisions like what you need to substitute the values for, like if you have missing values, what do I have to substitute it with, if I'll have to transform it to something else. All those decisions we'll have to take with exploratory data analysis. So here we are talking about how do we find missing values and how can we fill it with a inner data frame. So I'm just creating another data frame. Even though the name is the same, please remember it is not the same data frame, it is different. Here, like I'm just creating one with known missing values, okay? Not a number is what we are using for creating that. So so this is the data frame which I've created, okay? And in case I need to, if there is data and if there are missing values and based on the business discussion, you realize that I don't need to deal with missing values at all. I need to, in a particular column, if I don't have, I'll have to only take values which are present. If there are missing, I need to remove them from the data frame. Then you can look at, removing it with a drop NA function. This one will define whether it is going to be axis 1 will be column wise and axis 2 will be row wise. So here, if you see these two columns have NA drop NA, and you have like the other column, that's why you're getting the result as only the C column. In case you want to fill those values with something, okay, simple thing is value fill NA can be used, and value is just you can. I'm just giving an example, fill value here, but you can have some mathematical expression. Say for example, if you want to do it with a mean of a particular column, you can do that too. Say df of A, say this column has the third row as fill value here, but before that it was not present, missing. So what you can do is you fill that value with a mean of the rest of the values. So if you see this here, you have 1 plus 2, which will be 3, mean of that 1.5. So fill that with a mean. So if you do that, what happens is you will get 1.5 filled in that column. Are you with me on this?
Also, I have one question.
Yes.
Can you please scroll a little bit up? Yeah. Sorry, I had to ask this a little earlier. Oh yeah. Line 37. So when you are, putting the values for this DF, which is PD.data frame, you are creating A, B, C. So my question is, why we have to have the object and then this, another thing .nan? Why do we have to have np.nan for specifically this?
Oh, this is the way you need to. This is the way it is denoted. This is like a, you're creating the data frame with the columns. So these are values which are, and for explaining to you that there could be data with missing values, I've just created 3 rows and 3 columns with few of them with missing values. Not a number is what you would see as missing values.
So when you have to specifically have something that has not a nan, not a number, do you have to have this object name also np.nan? My question is, why can't we just write nan only? Why we have to call np and then dot and then nan? Why can't we just write nan only?
If you just write this, yeah.
NP stands for the pandas, right? This is what you imported. NumPy. Yeah.
Okay, NumPy, but why you have to say for number you didn't put anything other than just 1, 2, and then why not nan? Why you have to call NumPy dot? Why doesn't it just be like an nan?
So you can put none over there, which is I think native to Python. The nan that he's putting there is object of NumPy, right? So if you want this data set to work properly with NumPy, then you np.nan there. Otherwise, you can put a none there as well. It would still do the same thing, I think. So
Okay.
you just do that so that your whole data set works with NumPy.
Yeah. So you were to enter a data type that NumPy understands, you have to use
Yeah.
np.nan.
Yeah.
Okay.
This whole thing will also work with none. I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Sat and Varsha.
Okay. So this is where we are substituting the values which are not present with the mean of the values in that column. Okay, this is one of the operations which we can do. You can also find max or min, whatever you want to substitute it with. You can do that. Mean is a reasonable indication of what the columns values are, right? What average is one of the first things which you do. So I've added this here. So we have so far seen like how the values could be like you can have you can have data where there are missing values. How do we find them? How do we substitute them? Those are the things which we have seen. Any questions till now? Before I move to some of the data frame operations.
I think you can go ahead.
I'll take that as a no. Then I would like to talk about, like if you want unique values or if you want to count, you know, you can those things I'll cover now. You have been creating another data frame. It's like some columns and some rows which I have created. Say for a particular column, if you want to find the unique values, like what are the possible unique values in this, so that you see here that 444 is repeating. So you can use .unique function for finding that. It will give you the unique values in that column. And if you want to count those values, you can use .value underscore counts. So it will show that 444 is 2 and 555 is 1. Those things will be there. And you can also create a new data frame with various conditions, right? See, for example, you have the value, the first column value greater than 2 and the second column value equal to 444. Then you filter that out, you create it in the new data frame. Yeah.
How, when you said unique, how does it give you 444? Because 444 seems to be non-unique and repeating.
No, it is not. When I say unique, it is not the non-repeating values. It shows you without the values without repetition.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and this is another thing. We can apply a function. You define a function and you apply a function. For example, like here, I've defined a function based on the input. I should just get the square of that input. You can apply that to a column value. What you can do is df of column2 dot apply and call this function. What it will do is it takes not the square, it takes multiplies it with 2 and gives you the output. So here, if you see, it is giving like takes column 2, multiplies it with 2 and then gives you the output. This is also something which is a cool feature which we can use. In same way, this is a standard function. It's not only the function which you're defining. You can also use a standard function, which is a length you can use here. If you want to find the length of each element in column 3, you do that, it will give you the output. You can use this for various processing which you can do. So these are some of the operations which you can do with a data frame. This is a big list. As I said, I'm only introducing some parts of it. You can go to the pandas documentation and go through the complete list, and whichever you want to use, you can start using them. Any questions before I move to a simple import of CSV file to get to data frame. Okay, I'll take that as a no. So the next part which I'm going to cover is like how we would import the data. We have already briefly spoken about that. So I have just created an example.csv file. I'll open that CSV file 1 minute. Just give me a minute. I'll find that. So this is the CSV file which I have created. Maybe we can have like other values too. So what I can do is import it and you will see the values here. Whatever changes you do in the CSV file, you will import this. And as we saw, what we will be when you have a real life example, you will have the CSV file which will be given, or you need to get it to a CSV format, import it, and you will do the analysis based on that. You will have the column names, all these things. You look at this, whatever analysis you want to do. Say for example, in this case, this is the sale data, and if you want to filter wherever, this is the date on which the sale had taken place. If you want to filter with for a particular date, you can use the filtering techniques which I had mentioned, and then you can filter them and look at the data and analyze it. So these things can be done. So that's a brief introduction about pandas. Any questions? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So Saad, you wanted to briefly talk about pandas and NumPy. You want to do that, or shall I move to Matplotlib?
So I don't think we have time to show the integration, but what I'll just say is that one of the reasons NumPy is all of these data science libraries can work flawlessly with it. So when you have data pandas, for example, you can basically take a whole data frame and turn it into a NumPy array. And now as a NumPy array, it can work with any sort of a data science library, whether it's TensorFlow, scikit-learn, or all of that. So a lot of times when you're using data frames, you're going to take them and you're going to turn them into NumPy objects. So that's an important thing to know. And the command for that is really simple. So if you do, I think df.toNumPy, that can turn this whole data frame into a NumPy array. So it's a very simple thing to do, but it's also very important. Harshad, you want to start with the
Okay.
Matplotlib?
Okay, yeah, right. So far, whatever we have seen is like analyzing the data, filtering, exploring the data. The next part where we'll move to will be Matplotlib. This is more for visualization of the data. You see something visually, it will help you understand it in a better way, right? So Matplotlib is a prominent library which can be used. There are other things too, Seaborn, that is used. I'll introduce you to Matplotlib, and with this, like you can also look at moving to Seaborn later. So this is something which we will use when you want to see how the data distribution is, how the values are there outliers, all these things. There are several possibilities which can be done with this. Once again, if you go to there is a matplotlib.org where you can get all the details about this library. So I'll briefly look at, I'll give you an introduction about how things are being used, how you can, generate a curve with the data, those things I'll talk about. So as always, conda pip install matplotlib, and I import the pyplot module from matplotlib. This will be used for generating the graphs we are talking about, and this inline command is more for the getting the output here. You can for now ignore it. And I'm creating a NumPy array with which like you can it's actually some values which range from 0 to 5, 11 values equally spaced. That's what I'm creating. That's the X value, and Y value I'm assuming that it is squared of that, just to show you some graphs. So this is X value and Y value which I'm generating. And you can use the dot plot function to do it, or use an object oriented method to do it. First, I'll talk about this and then move to the object oriented function. So you just do plt dot plot. We have already imported that. So dot plot, give the X value, Y value, and the color in which you want the graph to be there. And you can also define like what the label you would want to have and the titles, labels and the title. You have the X label, you have Y label, these things are here. You add it, whatever you want to add, and you will get the graph. Okay. There are few things which are like subplots which you can create, not just one plot. You can have several plots or several matrix of plots that can also be done. So if you move to subplots, what you can do is you define like how many rows and how many columns are going to be there, and define what the first one will contain and what the second one will contain. So in this case, I've just taken a simple example, X and Y. One I'm plotting X versus Y, the other one I'm plotting Y versus X. That's what I'm doing. So you create plt.subplot, mention like how many rows and how many columns. So basically you're defining how many subplots will be here in this. Look, so this, if you multiply these two, you will get the number of subplots which you are creating. So for each of those, you mention what number you want to follow and what that subplot is going to contain. So if you take that, then the first one will have X versus Y, define that, and the second one will have Y versus X, define that. And this is, the color option which is given. See, matplotlib was created to have an equivalent of MATLAB in MATLAB visualization in Python. So you will see a lot of apparently these are ways of denoting colors in MATLAB. So you will see some denotions like this, and you will have like, see here, if you look at this, you have the color and the way the line, the way the line should be denoted. You have the color red and the dashes are going to be the lines, and you have the color green and you have the data points and the line. So that is what is denoted here, with which you get the graph here. Other way of doing it is you do it like more like an object oriented approach, where you create a canvas, you create an empty canvas and start defining various aspects in that canvas. Like for example, you create a figure saying using the dot figure function, define the axis for that, and in that axis you plot it. You define define the canvas, define the axis, and then what values go in. Like for example, what values are going to plot X versus Y. Color is blue here, and you have the label and the title, define it. So this is widely used because it gives you better control over the plot which you're generating. You can define, modify, add aspects, those things can be done. I'll explain what these things mean. So you just create the canvas first. This line is going to create the canvas which is going to be there. You define the axis. So this one is going to be, this value is left, bottom, the width and the height of the graph. So you have like here you are not able to see it because it's 0.1. So what you do is it's like 0.1 from this left side and 0.1 from the bottom, and you define the width and the height of the graph. That is how you create the axis here on the canvas. After you've created the axis, what you do is you define what is going to be plotted in that using the plot function. And when you're doing that, you define the color. You set the label, set x with set underscore x label, you set the x label, set underscore y label, create the y label, and the title, what you'll have to give. So these are values which are given, and with this, you can create the graph. Any questions till now before I move to subplots using this approach? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So you can also create subplots using, instead of this one, you create a subplot figure. So what you do is, in this, you get the output, both figure and axis. And what you do is you define like what the plot is going to be here using this axis. The beauty of this is this value which you get is a list actually. If you print this out, am I getting the value? 1 minute. Sorry. Or I'll insert a new one and I'll show it to you. Oh, it's showing it here. Okay. This is actually a list which you will get, which means you can iterate through that list. For example, when you get the axis here, you can define like axis of 0 is going to be this, axis of 1 is going to be here after you've defined it with the rows. Oh, okay, I understand why it is not. Here we hadn't given it as the number of rows and number of columns. Sorry about that. Here, if you give it with number of rows and number of columns, you will get this as a list. Here by default, it is taking it as one subplot, which means one row and one column. So you can, when you define it, it is taking for that value and plotting the graph. But if you define with number of rows and columns, what you can do is it will generate this axis as a list, which means you can iterate through this. When you can iterate, you can define like what values need to be in these subplots. So here, if you this one, I'll process this 1 minute. And if I just here, see, you look at this, you get a list actually. And in this list, you can define what each of these are going to contain. Like, for example, axis of 0 will refer to the first subplot. Axis of 1 will refer to the second subplot. So you can define for those things what each one should plot. And that if you use what you can, I like to say, like what I had done here, I am using the same technique to plot x versus y in the first subplot and y versus x in the second subplot. And I've also defined like the various parameters which can be there. Amongst those, I have defined the color of the curve. Any questions on this?
I think we are good.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that as a no. And the next one is going to talk about, like, I'll cover what are the various parameters you can define for creating this graph. First one I'm referring to here is the figure size, where if you want the graph to be with a wider range, you can define those things. The rest of the things are what we had seen before. You can add legends to your graph. What you can do is when you create the figure, you add the axis at this level, and then this is 0, 0, 1, 1. This is talking about the distance from the left and distance from the bottom, and then the width and the height of the whole thing. And you're going to add these things. Here, if you notice, I'm adding two curves to the same graph. Since there are two curves, I'm just attaching a label here. And if I add axis.legend here, x.legend here, that's going to be the axis. So x.legend here, it will create the legend for those graphs so that you know which one is x squared and which one is x cubed. in this case. This is legend creation in Matplotlib. You can also define the various colors using the color name itself, like majority of the colors which have proper names, you can define them, or using an RGB hex code. If you have a particular hex code, if you want it to be more specific, or if you have various values, which is like you cannot use the standard names to define all the colors. You can, if you want to show some variation, you can use the hex code also. And this parameter alpha is going to be is going to define the transparency of the line. So it is going to be half transparent if it is 50%. These are some of the parameters with which you can define the color and the transparency of a curve. And this one talks about, these are the various possibilities that are there. How you want the data points to be marked. And when you're marking them, like what color you want to have for the marker, what color you want to have for the fill of the marker, all these things can be defined here. So you can also say what is going to be the type of line here and what is going to be this is the line style and the line width. So these are some of the parameters which you can define when you're plotting the curve. So here, if you see, what I'm doing is I'm just creating a big graph where I'm saying you need to plot x versus x plus 1. That is, this value is x, and this is going to be in the first curve, it's going to be x plus 1, and then second curve is going to be x plus 2, so on. I'm creating curves till x plus 12. And for each of those lines, I'm creating I'm defining the lines and various other parameters, if you see. So the first set of 4 values, I'm giving it a color red, and I'm giving different widths. This is going to define the thickness of the lines. So here, if you see, you can see the first 4 values here. The thickness is varying from 0.25 till 1. Okay. The second one, I'm defining the color to be green, but I'm defining different line styles. Line style can be denoted either with line style fully or with a brief ls. And this is going to talk about line width, what we have seen here. So I'm defining with the same width, but I'm defining with different line styles possible here. So if you look at that, you have like the styles which are here, the styles which are here. Okay. And the next set of things, what I'm doing is the next one I'm defining with color black. Okay. Set dashes. So here, if you look at this, how the dashes are going to be, how they are spaced, that is what this line denotes. And the next one, I'm going to mark the data point values. That is, these were lines which were like the continuous curve, but without the data points marked. But the next set of values, I can mark the data points where I'm saying like, you mark it with either a plus or a 0 or a s or this one that can be done. When I'm doing that, I can also, define the other parameters, the width and the style. And within the marker, you can also define what the marker size is going to be, what the marker, if you're taking a square, for example, what is going to be the size, what is going to be the face color, what is going to be the width, and what's going to be the edge color. So all these things you will see in this line here. This, if you look at this last line of code, you can see how you will define with, the marker, how you will define the marker. So the first few things are going to talk about, like, see, we're going to have the X value, Y value, the color of the line, the width of the line, the style, which is going to be dash, which we have used, the marker square, the marker size, which is going to be 8 here. The face color is going to be yellow. What it's going to be the fill color, the width, the marker edge width is going to be 3. So you define the thickness of this border and the edge color, which is going to be green. So all these things can be defined in while you're generating the graph, so that it gives you a good visual representation and you can come to conclusion. And you can also use this for, showing it to someone else, so that you can, we know that reports have its own significance and dashboards have its own significance, right? So the visual representation can be done with various parameters defined in Matplotlib. Any questions about this?
Nope.
Okay. The next one, we have been so far using the access range, which Python has used. We can also define the range. For example, like I'm using this for defining, like I have x squared and x cubed plotted, and here I'm defining like what the y limit of the axis is going to be and what the x limit of the axis is going to be. So this is the default with which it would have generated. But after defining the axis limit, you can see that it is from 0 to 60 for y and 2 to 5 for x. So this will help you, zero in on some values which you would want to see and see a visual representation of this, of those values. This is another aspect which you can use. Of course, it gives you tons of possibilities. I think matplotlib.org will have the details for this. You can see examples here. You can what can be done, which type of graph if you want to generate. Say, for example, if you want to generate a stacked bar chart, you can go to that. It will give you an example, and you'll have the example code and how you define these things. So if you see the process, like you can go to matplotlib.org, and if you're looking at a particular type of graph, there's a big list actually. So you can go through all these things, whatever you would want to choose for your data analysis, you can choose. And if you select one of those, you can, you'll also have the code which you can use for generating such a graph. Like if you want to do it with confidence bands, it's here. This is what we need to use. The code will be there. So this is like, if you can see here, like there are tons of information available. What I have done is only introduced you to some of the aspects. If you go through this, you will get a lot more information, and you can use this for your exploratory data analysis. With that, I'll stop the presentation for Matplotlib. Any questions on this, please let me know. Okay, I'll take that as a no. So are there any concluding comments you would like to make?
I'll just say that, I think we had a very great course, and we covered a lot of things, more than I expected at the start. So it's pretty interesting that we were able to cover the tools, the practical uses, and the machine learning models all in one course. So I had a lot of fun doing those.
Oh, thanks a lot, Sad. Thanks for that comment. See, what we have tried to do is introduce you to machine learning, some aspects of it. This is not a complete package. Next year, we are planning something which will, where we'll have proper steps defined and more real life example coming in. We have tried to cover the theory part of it. Understanding the theory will be important for you to move to, a real life problem. That's the reason we started with theory, and we also explain the concept behind some of the models. These are just, the initial steps in all these areas. Based on this, we need to build on to take it to the next level. Hopefully participants will also go to that level, and if they have any questions, like we are always there to help you out. You can always reach out to us. It's not just restricted to what we had covered in this in these sessions. And I had great fun preparing and presenting this. I might have satisfied everyone. I might not have satisfied, but please let me know. I'm open to feedback. It will help us plan the next sessions better. As I mentioned, like I'll send a short survey. It will help if we know the feedback for these sessions. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. On that context, just for the continuation purpose, right? So the couple of things that I wanted to really tell here. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you guys is just a minute. Okay, this is a wrong document. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Guys? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. So just wanted to share with you quickly something here. Just a minute before you leave. So the next year Testoper programs, particularly for the AI, we have planned for 2 programs. So the first program is artificial intelligence with TensorFlow. It starts on March, a 9 hours session. And then the another session that we are planning is introduction to the deep learning with TensorFlow. That starts on September 25th. Again, it's a 9-hour session. So we believe in these two sessions, we will redo whatever that we have done as a basics, and we will cover the advanced topics and so on around the artificial intelligence. And this will be run under the brand name of Masterclass. Okay. So outside of that, we have different programs like Meetup, Codathon, and so on. You can actually look it up. We will publish it in the Eventbrite, and we are looking forward to your continuous support to join and continuously learn. Right. So that's the first thing I wanted to share. And the second thing that I wanted to share is, you guys are working on this, and Shad is already involved, and I will get Harsha involved in this activity. So we are starting a new program called Testoper Projects that I wanted you all to know, which will be a practical implementation of whatever that we are learning in AI into 2 open source projects that would be very much useful for Testoper community and the stakeholders in the Testoper community, right? So we kind of already started defining these projects. At a very high level, Career Path is one project where we wanted to really help people to develop their career path based on a lot of AI related things that we wanted to do to help them to achieve that target, right? And then the second one is a learning path. Once you understand this is the career path that you wanted to take, and what is the learning path that you need to go through to achieve that career targets that you have is a learning path. And these 2 projects that we're going to do is going to be purely based on artificial intelligence. And there's going to be a lot of AI into these 2 projects. And Shad Malik is actually leading this project together with me, and Harsha will join this pack very soon. So the reason that I wanted to kind of display this is this particular initiative that we are doing. We actually meet on Friday, 6 to 7. If anyone interested in this group can join us. It happens on every Friday, and we are evolving this basic concept into the reality step by step, and we're going to execute this project, and this is going to be totally based on AI. If you wanted to really practically help us to implement whatever that you have learned for the benefit of the community, please reach out to us, at testoper@testoper.com. We will invite you onto this Friday call, and you can join, and we can start working towards this, making this take this to the next level, right? So these are the 2 key things. So there are exciting programs coming for the next year, and two projects that we are planning to do, open source projects that's going to be purely based on AI. On these 2 topics is something that we already kickstarted, and we are executing it, and we are going to go in full force starting next year, right? Right now we are in the planning and requirement gathering stage, analysis stage, and concept stage, feasibility stage, and so on. These are all the 2 key points that I wanted to really share with you guys. If you are interested to really, join and help us out building this project, where you would get, certificates of work certificates and many other benefits out of this, is something that we are work in progress, and we will kind of, create all those things in the Eventbrite to help you guys to join us and do. Meanwhile, if you are already interested, like I said, reach out to testoper@testoper.com. So these are the 2 key points that I wanted to say, and officially close this session by thanking Harsha and Shad for their tremendous effort, top-notch session delivery, and also to all the attendees who participated and learned from this, and have a mindset or cultivating a mindset to continuously learn in this area. And kudos to you guys as well. So with that, today we are officially closing our year for our Saturday weekly program, and I'm looking forward to all your support for our next year program, as well as support in spreading our different activities that we do for rest of the 2 months, and also continuously for the next year. And we will reach out to you asking help, what we exactly need from you to really, take this to the next level in few weeks. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks, Harsha. Thanks, Shad. And thanks, every one of you. Kudos to you guys. All the very best.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.